Taking the program forward, I would now like to request Professor Farida Khan, who is from Jamia Millia, to address us. Professor Khan is also a part of our core team of Indian educators who have been working on this program, formalizing this program. And ma'am is going to be your course coordinator for the first week. So please, everybody be very careful. She's a very hard taskmaster, just like Dr. Singh.
Here, and it is wonderful to meet all of you, because we have these lists of names and who's coming from where. And as Amarjit just said, we've not very long ago done, some of us have been involved in these what were, evaluative tours of certain states, and the reports are on the website of the ministry, so it might be interesting for you to have them. But it was a good experience. Most of us have been associated with teacher training institutes, with diets on the ground, teaching experiences and schools in different parts of the country. But that was a focused exercise, again initiated by the ministry. So it was a good way to have a very good idea of what is going on in certain states and have some opportunity to reflect on it in a slightly different manner. I have to actually acknowledge Professor Janaki Rajan, who was not mentioned, but I think she was initially, Professor Janaki Rajan is also at the Jamia Millia Islamia. Some of you would know her because she's also done some of these visits. She was the person who actually was responsible for the first look at this, how this is going to be done, and the orientation, and I think the correspondence, etc., interactions with ASU.
And reviewed the proposal.
Yeah, and the review of the proposal. So initially she's been part of this. I've come in later, and we tried to make, try and put together a good 10, 12 days for you, which would be helpful. And I just want to talk a little bit about that, because I don't want to say too much. It's, I think, going across your experience, what I've just heard, going across what you think of as problems in education and what you think of as solutions, or you want solutions for, or some reflections on, covers the gamut of what we are seeing in India. We know that, since especially in the field of elementary education, which a lot of you are associated with, we know that since independence, and much before independence, that has been an issue in this country. We know that, despite Article 45 with the start of this, when this country, with independence, we haven't been able to implement actually universal education to date. I mean, we are almost there, but not quite. And almost there, we also know, means children come into schools, but we know how many of them drop out and how many of them don't learn. Amarjit just mentioned the fact that actually a lot of them are in class 5, 6, and 7 and can't read and write. Now, one of the things that came out quite clearly is, and as practitioners, it's true that one is involved so much in a classroom and in the actual situation that we don't get time very often to stand back and reflect a little bit. It's also true that the government of India, the many policies, the reviews of our education system have tried to pinpoint what the problems are and find solutions. We have a number of projects going on. All of you have been associated with, I think, the SSA, now the RMSA, all kinds of other projects that are in place, the teacher education programs, etc. We also need to think, why is it that in spite of all of these programs, we haven't really made the kind of progress we hoped to make, or come to the kinds of solutions that we should have by now. Partly, I think also I would like you to reflect on that. The government makes its efforts, it has a certain viewpoint, it has a situation from where it's looking at education, it has its own compulsions. But I think the people who can really give feedback is the people on the ground. And I think we need to reflect that why, as teacher educators, and I count myself amongst those, I have actually been in part of teacher education programs, and I'm still at the Jamia, though slightly removed from a B.Ed program. We do more research in the department I am based. But I have trained teachers, I have supervised teachers in schools, I have been to, districts, I have been associated with some programs which work around the country, innovative programs. And the immediate, concern for people on the ground is what is happening between me and the person I'm interacting with. But I think much more than that, and something that is really lacking in our teacher education perspective, is standing back a little bit and looking at the larger problems. After all, education is not something that is isolated from society. It doesn't stand apart. If we are talking of exclusions in schools, we are talking of them because we have exclusions in our society. Our society is riddled with hierarchies, and unless we understand where those come from, we are not going to be able to face them in the school, and we are not going to be able to challenge them. We might try our best. The child leaves school and enters the social milieu that they are part of. We also need to reflect, and all of you especially need to reflect on, when we have dropouts, when we have people who are disadvantaged, why do they fall into certain patterns, and what are the factors that actually need to be thought about related to those patterns of exclusions, hierarchies, discriminations, and outright conflicts and violence against children. It doesn't just stop at having subtle discrimination. We do end up in violent conflicts between communities. So one of the things that this 3 months is going to do for you is to give you that space to step back from the immediate situation in a way in which you're only thinking of what do I do next in the classroom, what do I have to teach, where is my textbook, where is the, how does this thing have to be transacted for today or for the next 1 month. It'll allow you time to actually reflect, to sit with people who can help you with those reflections. And as Amarjit said, I think it's a wonderful opportunity for all of you to be together and to talk to each other. I would really encourage you to work in groups and to discuss things with each other after you have had interactions with. It's a very important part of learning and of teaching, being part of an educational system. Or just to clarify your own ideas is when you discuss it with someone. You would have that opportunity. Very often in our working lives, we are rushing around so much. We sometimes do consult colleagues, we talk about our problems, but very often we don't have the time. You have you have your whatever has to be done, you have your teaching, you have to reflect on it by yourself, you have to prepare for the next day, you have to think of 100 other things that are going on. But these 3 months would give you the opportunity actually to sit in libraries, which is another form of discussion. It is actually, communicating with minds who have put down their thoughts. And that's part of it. And I think one of the, something that a teacher has to do, and an opportunity one has, is of learning, lifetime and lifelong learning. Catherine just talked about we don't often get time to learn after we've started our jobs. But in teaching is one of the areas that actually allows you that time. And if you don't do it, you can't be a teacher anymore. You have to be learning, and you learn every day from your students, you learn from the people you come in contact with, you learn from the communities that you are interacting with. And hopefully that learning is what should be feeding into how we understand education and the educational system. So I think this 3 months would really be useful for you if you are going to take and very seriously reflect on what are the biggest problems around you, that you have encountered and not been able to find answers to, not being able to, because that's where cynicism and non-motivation, what we talk about, we keep hearing about how teachers are not motivated, how teachers are not teaching. I can tell you, I have talked to many teachers, they are motivated, they want to teach. I cannot believe that there is anybody in the world would want to have a profession where they enter it and then 1 year later they never want to do anything anymore. So we have to question what is it about the teaching and the whole system of teachers that push you, that you have many more questions than you went with, but you have questions which you're seriously thinking of finding answers to. That is the lifelong quest of a teacher. If we had solutions to things, we wouldn't need very much. You would need a toolkit which is what our teacher training courses seem to be giving us these days. You know, you have a set of procedures, 1, 2, 3, if you complete them, you'd be okay. We've been hearing that for 50 years and nothing has been okay. So let's think about why is it not okay. If you can find those questions and actually feel passionately involved in those questions and committed to those questions, I think you would have, you know, spent your 3 months well. Because you'd also have experts, as Amarjit said, as Ara will tell you in the next few days, you know, in some detail. You'll have access to very good libraries. You'll have access, and I know that's one thing that is really missing on the ground. Even in our better universities, education libraries aren't very well equipped, I think. I mean, they are well equipped, and we have a lot of materials, and now we have access to a lot of, you know, e-journals and internet materials. But I know on the ground, in the districts, in villages, it is almost impossible. The library is the last priority of most institutions. We don't have access to books. And you know, unless you have that, you are not going to be able to you know, communicate, to think, to actually exchange your ideas or challenge ideas that others have put forward. And you should be able to do that. When you are practicing and things go against what some book is telling you, you should be able to have a dialogue with someone else who's also challenging that. And that's something that's missing on the ground for a lot of you. I know that, and you know, I think the ministry is making its efforts to try and have some resources available and make them, especially now that teacher education is being looked at seriously. But that's something you're going to have access to. You'll have access to people then with whom you can discuss those ideas that you actually read about, or you think about, or you talk about. They will be there to answer your queries, to actually address the concerns you have. You will have access to, I mean, as this orientation program is going to give you some background in how to access materials on the net. I'm sure some of you are, you know, doing that already. But you will have access to a lot of additional materials there because of the university and the place you're in. So make good use of it, and you know, take as much as you can from the course. The other thing I would ask all of you is not to hesitate to ask questions and to actually shape the agenda even when you are there. I'm sure the university is open to it. Can I say that on your behalf, Farida? That you can actually ask for why certain things aren't being done, or could they be done in a certain way, depending, you know, on given the background you have and the experience you have. And I'm sure, you know, there might be something, not everything's going to be possible or things can be changed. But you should have some say in how is it that what is already there can be shaped so that it becomes helpful to you, and how does your own experience benefit from that knowledge. And that exchange should happen, and I hope all of you will participate in that exchange. Sometimes we think that what I'm saying is very insignificant compared to something, but nothing you are doing in the field is insignificant, because you are the ones actually out there in the field trying to change the system that we talk about, from universities, you know, government, whatever fora, everywhere. Education is not going the way it should be going. What should education be doing? And you know how much power education has. After all, education is also part of a system, and we know that, you know, there are thinkers who feel that education actually keeps systems where they are rather than changing them. And I mean, we have examples we see that around us. We know that girls can go to school, and you can think that educating girls is going to make them radical. But if the school is telling girls, I mean, if you go to school as a girl and you're being told your place is somewhere else, and you know, you are different from a boy, and you have to learn to listen to what a man tells you, then your education isn't doing all that much to change your life. So you have to bring up these questions. You see them every day, you see them happening. You have to think about them and see how you can actually, you know, take those questions, use this time that you have and the resources, which means, you know, the material resources around you, but also the human resources, the people who are going to be around you, and each other. I think that's really a good opportunity, one that you have each other, you have different experiences from different states. And you know, India is a varied country, and not every state would have the same solutions and not the same problems. So, you know, it's a good way to exchange ideas. And again, then when you were even introducing yourselves, there's a large variety of experience, people talking about who have been associated with information technology, others who are concerned with pedagogy, others who are concerned with management, etc. So all of those experiences are going to enrich, the time you have. So use it and talk to each other, work in groups, work with each other, have discussions after you are done. For the next 10 days, just to give you a little orientation, you will have training for using the information systems, using the computer, downloading information. That's actually I think that's going to be quite an intensive program. And make use of that, because the better equipped you are, when you reach there, you'll be able to start accessing things right away instead of having to waste time learning. You'll also have some really good people coming here to talk to you, and we are hoping to have very interactive sessions so that you can talk as much as the person who's talking to you will be doing. I would advise you the 2 documents that have been given to you, and a lot of you might have read them, but I think it might be a good idea to actually start from that. What we had hoped is that if you focus on those documents and then look at, for example, there's a session on curriculum. Padma Sarangpani coming from Bangalore, and she'll be talking to you about curriculum. Take the opportunity of having questions ready. I mean, this book says, after all, compare it to what you see in the field. It says a lot of things, the document, and a lot of teachers will tell you, and some of our research is showing that teachers feel that this new curriculum document doesn't suit their classrooms. Teachers have new textbooks, but they put them aside, teach with the old textbooks, and then bring these books back. So why is that happening? What are the problems there? What is it that's making teachers do that? After all, if we think of this as, this new curriculum, the new textbooks, all of us here were associated with developing this document, the position papers that are there, with the hope that we are making it much more interesting for teachers and students. If we go out to teachers then and they say it's not any more interesting for us, we need to question what is it that's not working? What is it that hasn't been taken into consideration, and why is it happening the way it's happening? You just can't say, no, you're wrong and you've been given a document, you better follow that. That's not going to solve the problem. So keep your questions ready. The more you read now, the more, even during these 10 days, you exchange notes with each other, you think of the really serious problems. And I would really advise you, this is just a personal piece of advice, it may not work for everybody, but I think if I was you, I would focus on one little area of concern for myself. It's good to take what all is being given to you, but if you think this is what really concerns you, then whatever or whichever professor you're meeting there, or you could bring that in as your point of reference. I think it would help you, because if you understand one thing really well, you start to understand other things. But if you just have a smattering of everything at a superficial level, it doesn't go very far. So if if you have one area of particular interest and you're coming from that, you think of some problem which you had or which exists around you in the field, in that area, and then see how can you actually put the two together, what is being told to you and this problem that's really there and which has been troubling you, which exists on the ground, in that way, and then try and see which part of education it fits into and focus on some area rather than everything and anything. I mean, you will be getting a lot, it's good, you'll have a good exposure to a lot of things, but the thing what concerns you most, interests you most, and what you feel committed to more than anything else. If you actually try and develop that part of yourself during these 3 months, I think that would be helpful. So you've got the program for the next few days. People are accessible, they're going to be able to talk to you. I mean, if you want to have exchanges in Hindi or any of that, I think all that is going to be easily doable. So I just want to wish you all the best, to thank Amarjeet for giving us also the opportunity to be here and to interact with you. And I'll be around for the first week, but all of us, there's Kamal, there's Hriday Kant, there's myself, we'll be around more or less over the next 10-12 days. We'll see. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Khan, for giving us a comprehensive overview of the orientation program, what to expect and how to ready ourselves for the same.